Organization and Personnel Committee. Meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302. I believe that's repaired, so those at home will get to see it right away. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets just as you enter the meeting rooms. The public and other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on agenda items under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I'll not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes has had a chance to speak the first time. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. The minute taker participates remotely. Committee members, please be sure to turn on your microphones when speaking. And if the minute taker is unable to hear, they will certainly let us know, and our production section will tell us when our microphones need to be turned on. We will have somebody remotely, so Councilor Remy is asked to participate remotely, and he's got to come on so he can.
Oh, he wasn't on yet.
Okay. We'll wait a few seconds for the electronics to catch up with us. It's on West Coast time.
Are you guys in this? So he's just not on.
I think he should just go.
All right. Well, when he comes on, we'll just break in and go from there. It will require that we do our voting by voice votes. All right, this evening we have a, actually, he's the topic of the first. It was his concerns, but I hope he isn't too late. All right.
You want to do one other one before you can skip that for now?
Let's do that because we won't delay that long. All right, for the purpose of talking with each and every topic that's before you, we want to make sure that one of the council members had posed some of the questions that were researched to be available tonight. And as soon as he signs on, we'll come back to that. So moving on to the second item.
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Oh, he is there. If you
Hello.
state your name, where you are, and why you're being asked to come in by the wires.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I am currently in a conference room in California. I am currently by myself, but I cannot rely on that because there's not very many available seats here. So I'm traveling for work. I wish I could be there with you tonight.
Any objection to him participating? All right, having said that, we'll move on to the first item. And Councilor Filio had brought before us a proposal that the City Council consider a delay in the downtown infrastructure project. Any further discussion, sir? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the concerns expressed by our downtown businesses, we are not opposed to a one-year delay in the construction timeline. If the council decides to delay the project, we would plan to issue the bid in September or October in that time frame, targeting construction for 2026. In the meantime, we would submit for a federal RAISE grant. Applications for this round are due at the end of January. If the council decides to proceed with the current construction schedule, our grant submission will focus on phase 2 and 3 of the project. However, if you choose to delay, we will submit an application for the full project. While there are no guarantees of receiving funding, this is a significant funding opportunity. It's important to note that our initial application wasn't selected as a project of merit, so it won't be reviewed in the first tranche of applications. That said, we conducted a debrief with the federal government, FHWA, staff last fall. They provided feedback on where our application performed well and where we didn't score maximum points. We're using that information to strengthen our submission this time around. Additionally, we'll be asking the council's support in engaging our congressional delegation. Just yesterday, I spoke with Pam Slack from Senator Shaheen's office, and she has agreed to assist us in securing a support letter. We'll also be reaching out to Senator Hassan's office for their support. Having backing from our delegation is a critical component of this process. There are financial risks to consider, particularly related to the potential escalation of construction costs and market fluctuations, as discussed at your last FOP. However, delaying construction would allow us to bid the project months ahead of the planned schedule. This additional time would enable us to collaborate with the contractor, better understand their construction approach, and communicate those details to businesses and residents, and address concerns proactively. Moreover, it would provide an opportunity to pursue federal funding for the full project through the RAISE grant, potentially significantly reducing the burden on taxpayers and ratepayers. Ultimately, the decision rests with the council. It's a matter of weighing the financial risk associated with cost uncertainty and market fluctuations with the opportunity for substantial federal funding that could alleviate financial impacts on the community, and all the while considering the concerns you heard from our downtown business community. We are prepared to move forward in 2025 or 2026 based on your direction.
Thank you. Councilor Remy, you had some questions that ultimately had us decide to put this on more time and come back. Have you received, through some of
Yeah,
the-
so sorry, I thought you were done. My connection got a little bumpy. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. So have you received the data that you had requested and would like to comment at this point, and then we'll open it up to the public?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So two pieces. I think that the staff did a good job of presenting a phasing plan during the MSFI meeting, which was what I was looking for and looking to understand, and that's why I initially asked to put this on more time. I think what the city manager is discussing now of bidding it in advance also goes back to what I had talked about in last week's meeting of, if that was an option, if we did delay, to bid early to give us more time to really communicate that and to say this is exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to work, and give us the most amount of time with those vendors to really understand that. So I really appreciate the feedback that the manager just provided. I received the information I was looking for. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Members of the committee first. Yes, sir.
This is an extremely tough one. It's financial, it's political, and it isn't something that just came out of nowhere. It's been going on for a long period of time. With the change in administration and their willingness to chop a lot of non-discretionary funding, which helps pay for projects like this around the country. Begrudgingly, I will support the delay. I don't think it's in the best interest of the city. Being a construction engineer myself, I know things could just flip just like that, where you think everything's going, then the price can go through the the roof. So if we give it more time, so we delay, there's always the possibility that something else can happen. You can have a blowback, and it will have a worse effect on the downtown economy than if it started now. But listening to it, like I said, I will support the delay, but I'm not really comfortable it's going to work out the way everybody thinks it's going to work out.
I'll come back to you. So, members of the public, further comments on this particular topic?
Sorry. Can you hear me? Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Pam Slack. But I'm here for two reasons. One, I think almost everyone here knows that I work for Senator Shaheen, and yes, I can confirm that I did speak to the city manager. What the office can do is to, when the grant is submitted, is have, I cannot speak for the senator, is have a letter accompany the grant. And that is the information that I gave to her. And now I'm going to speak to Pam Slack, and I live at 260 Beaver Street. I think it's very, very important, and I've said this many, many times, having come from a small business that was downtown, that I think at this time that it is important because there are a lot of unknowns to support the small businesses downtown. So thank you for those who are going to support this move.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Roland Russell, 77 High Street. I have a parallel conundrum from the perspective of Antioch University, where I've worked for 38 years, 26 of them in Keene. In January 2020, a water main broke outside our building. My office was one of all the first 4 offices that were flooded. Thousands of dollars of damage just in my office alone. That really led to us thinking that that probably wasn't the best long-term building. As many of you know, a couple of years go by, we enter into an agreement with University of New Hampshire system. The lot is cleared on Winchester Street near the traffic circle, and we have a great plan for a new building. Another delay happened because of university business. The bid comes back, the rebid comes back after the plans have been revised again. 2.5 times the construction cost of what we anticipated, because construction costs don't tend to go down year by year. So we're still struggling with this. We're not able to build on that site. We're looking at other options. Hopefully we'll land on our feet. You know, it is, the resilience of Antioch, though, was actually COVID helped us. We pivoted really quickly to online learning, and our enrollment actually went up in that time. So there is a way for struggles to lead for advantages. I'm nervous about this. I've shared my caution about the construction costs going up, but the other caution is for our businesses, and I want to make sure that we do everything we can to support our businesses, and it's got to fall on us as citizens to do that. Not ideally, not hopefully through higher taxes, but by each of us making the commitment to support our downtown businesses throughout the construction, regardless of when it begins. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor?
Gosh. Thank you. Sorry, shorter. Laura Tobin, Center Street. I do have serious concerns about delaying the project. And I think that communication can be improved, and I look forward to doing that. And to doing that, and some of my concerns are, so first of all, being a longtime resident of downtown Keene, I swear every summer I tell my family, this is the last summer that you'll get to visit me before there's construction, and like every summer. And it just keeps getting, from my perspective, I keep thinking that it's going to happen earlier than it did. And there are decisions that I have made anticipating that construction was going to happen at a certain time, and it kind of feels like a loss when that doesn't happen. I know that there are businesses and organizations locally that have been planning and trying to anticipate this, knowing that it's coming. I think about the skate park, which it felt very frustrating to me because I had a lot of people asking me why it wasn't completed, and what I kept hearing was that, I guess if I remember correctly, the bidding costs that we had anticipated the cost ended up being significantly more, so we couldn't afford to build it year after year. So, and that was very frustrating. I heard from I think it was the Public Works Director who mentioned that construction, because interest rates would be going down, that it was likely that construction would increase, which would mean that even if we chose to delay it a year, there is the possibility that we may not find a bidder within that budget. So we could end up with more breaks to repair. Pumpkin Fest last year was great, not, I guess in 2023, right? It poured, but there were a lot of people down there, and one thing that you couldn't help but notice was this one section of the street that was flooded. And I never really noticed it before because there were just always cars parked there, but, it kind of, I felt relieved that construction was coming, that this was going to be fixed. But, I love our downtown businesses. I know a lot of them are newer, and I look forward to spending more time there, but and I will say that during the pandemic, that was obviously a difficult time for a lot of people, and I feel like a lot of us stepped up. I ate out, that was the first time that I ate out regularly. And I felt more committed than ever to downtown during that time. And I think that whenever this happens, it will be difficult. It will not be fun. But I will continue to show up for our businesses personally. So, and I think that there are a lot of other people who will too. So, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know who was first.
I'll be Hi, everybody. Ted McGreer, 115 Main Street, downtown Keene. To Councilor Tobin's point, my business has been here 25 years, and there are more new businesses in our downtown quarter than I can ever remember. If you have a business that's been here 25 years, you have more staying power to survive some things like this. I'm grateful for even the thought of having a delay for these new businesses to try to make it through. I want to ask a question to the city manager, and that is that when we applied for the RAISE grant the first time, isn't it safe to assume we didn't have a solidified plan in place?
We certainly didn't have a plan as detailed as we do now.
Yeah. So the probability that our chances of this RAISE grant helping to fund this project now with a solidified plan is much higher, which with the help of Senator Shaheen's office, I think that would offset the price of increased construction costs. I'm grateful that there's a discussion about it, and thank you for hearing us. Yeah.
Thank you. Counselor?
Randy Filio, Keene City Council. When I originally wrote this letter, it wasn't on my behalf, it was on behalf of the downtown merchants. And I'll be honest, when I wrote the letter, I didn't know how many were going to show up. We had 24 merchants show up a few weeks ago expressing their deep concerns and their genuine concerns that their business would not be able to survive the construction period if we did it this soon. That in itself was a reason enough to delay the project a calendar year. But since then, as the city manager just alluded to, we have a more significant chance of getting the RISE grant the second time around. That's multi-million dollars. We're not talking a few bucks, we're talking multi-million dollars. If we do achieve that grant, and there's other grants we can go for also. That's not the only grant out there that we didn't get, and it's not the only grant out there that we might achieve. There's more grants out there we can go for. I know there's always a calculated risk, and we've heard that, well, the cost could go up a little bit. That's true. Life is a calculated risk, I get that. But in this particular situation, the calculated risk of putting multiple businesses out of business is a calculated risk, I said a couple weeks ago, I didn't want to take. But now we have a good calculated risk of receiving multi-million dollars in grants we didn't get before. Find me a taxpayer that would not want multi-million dollar grant to reduce what the taxpayers have to put into the downtown project. So between the two calculated risks, one, that we're going to help the downtown merchants survive another year while they can put funds away for an upcoming project, and two, we have a good potential of getting multi-million-dollar funds that we do not have to put onto the taxpayers' back. Those two reasons are enough to delay this project a year. Like I said, I understand everything's a calculated risk, but the calculated risk now weighs on the side of the taxpayers, and I hope the committee will go along with my original letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Jim Sterling, 197 Jordan Road, Keene, New Hampshire. I was a business owner here for 35 years. I understand very well the concerns of the downtown merchants. But I also want to put it in perspective because, first of all, what we heard from them were their concerns and their anxieties, which is different than the realities. It's easy to come up here and say, oh, I might go out of business in a couple of years. For what reason? Because for basically one construction cycle of 7 months, you can't withstand that. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. Every small business faces chances of going out of business for a number of reasons. And I can tell you this, as a business owner for 35 years, I worried about going out of business every day, but I made it 35 years. And whatever your anxieties are, they usually are not the reality. Just case in point, people are renting new places now downtown, knowing that there's going to be an infrastructure project. I mean, every other week you're seeing a new business either signing a lease, opening up, expanding, coming in. So the fact that there's an infrastructure project coming is not deterring them. Now, just look what happened over at West Street around Walmart. That was a 3-year project going on. Did anybody go out of business? No. No one went out of business. Are they going to feel some pain? Sure. But you're supposed to be ready for that when you're running a small business. Secondly, when we talk about cost increases, I don't know of a time when I've seen more things going on with particularly our new administration that's coming in that have potential to increase prices dramatically. I don't have enough time up here to talk to you, but you all know it's like tariffs on every frickin' country. Are you kidding me? Immigration, get rid of everybody? Oh, that's not going to affect labor costs. I mean, you have everything in front of you that says there could be dramatic increases. Thirdly, everybody's talking about like we're probably going to get this grant. It's like, I know some people inside the city government, and honestly, we really had it right the first time. Now, maybe we might have an increased chance, but here's what's not being discussed. I think Chris touched on it. You've got a new administration coming in that wants to chop whatever they can. So maybe we increase the easiest thing for them to cut. So people aren't considering there may not be any funds for whatever we're applying for. So I think you guys are really playing Russian roulette with this. This is not like, oh, much better chance, yes, there's a little bit of risk. I think right now we can absolutely see costs are going to increase dramatically. Businesses are going to survive. One more year is not going to keep the people going out of business from going out of business. It's like, in a year and a half now, we could be like, gosh knows what's going to happen with whatever's going on. And it's not going to be costs going down, I can tell you that. And we could be sitting here trying to get a better chance at a grant that's not even going to have funds for it. And certainly a letter from a Democratic governor in this administration is not going to be like, in a blue state, is going to be going like, oh yeah, we're going to give them the few dollars we have left. I've said my Peace.
Thanks, Jim.
You're right, I'm sorry. Thanks for the correction.
All right, someone else. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Jared Goodell, 39 Central Square. The question before you tonight is whether or not a major infrastructure project should be paused. You've heard a lot of high-volume outrage about this project, a lot of emotion as to why you should vote to delay the project, and while you should consider each and every constituent's input always, you must decide how much weight should be given to the things which are outside of the control of this city government. It is my belief that the purpose of city government is limited, but important. Public safety is a leading responsibility, and a close second is public infrastructure. The public expects, without thinking about the complexities of how it works, that when they turn the shower on, water will come out. They expect that when they flush their toilet, their waste will go somewhere. If those important public infrastructure systems fail, then you have failed this city, and so has the administration. It is undisputed, even by the people in this room, that the aging infrastructure on Main Street and Central Square need to be replaced. The question is when. Many of the constituents you've heard from tonight and previous nights say that 2025 is just not the year. But it's disingenuous for many of those asking to delay to suggest that the downtown businesses have not had proper notice or time to prepare for this project. This project has been the talk of the town for years, and I'm sure that you more than anyone else know that. Specifically, downtown stakeholders have been at many of the numerous meetings that have been held in this room and at the library. I think we can all agree that this project has been discussed ad nauseum. This project has given the downtown stakeholders more time than many other businesses in other areas of the city which have work done on their infrastructure and roadways. The Key Road project in Keene made a no-outlet road virtually inaccessible for more than a year. That project didn't receive this level of attention or notice, yet those businesses, many small locally owned businesses, survived. They put pencil to paper and made things work. Marketing, promotions. Give the people what they want and they will come. You must remember that you represent thousands of constituents, not just those here downtown. I don't believe that the possibility that some downtown businesses may close because of this project should be given considerable weight in your deliberations regarding delay. Businesses come and go every day. Businesses are closing on Main Street now, and there's no work being done. That's a fact you shouldn't miss. Even with the possibility that the project may happen in months, businesses are also opening. Smart and ambitious business entrepreneurs are opening new businesses on the eve of a major infrastructure project. From the standpoint of downtown businesses, there will never be a good time for this project. It will be hard in 2025, it will be hard in 2026, it will be hard whenever it's done. For the taxpayers, though, now is the best time to start this project. Taxpayers in Keene are saddled with some of the highest tax rates in the state. You have a chance to mitigate further increases in taxes by getting shovels in the ground as soon as possible. With regards to the grants the city manager spoke about, those are maybes. I think we all agree on that. The city has been denied already, and it could be denied again. You should weigh the total impact that a delay could have on all the citizens in Keene. If a water line breaks, if a sewer line breaks, that will cause an overnight, no-notice mini infrastructure project at a much higher cost to the taxpayers. I'll end with this. Councilor Roberts, you started this meeting by saying that you would begrudgingly support a delay. I'd ask you and your colleagues to not begrudgingly make significant financial decisions for the city. I'd ask you not to cave to the high-volume outrage. Do what is right for the city, and that means every taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the body out there? Okay, Councilmember, oh.
Roberta Mastro Giovanni, 67 Main Street, Corner News. Really just echoing what Randy had said on the 2 points of, on behalf of we retailers, merchants, downtown, and for the financial reasons that grants can work to fund a project like this. Those 2 reasons alone should be a no, absolute vote for a delay. But as a retailer, as a person who sits behind a counter every day, 7 days a week sometimes, morning, noon, and night, like many of the people here that are retailers, we suffered through COVID. And, you know, yes, I've been in business downtown a long time, as Ted has and several others. And this time now in downtown is exciting because there's so many new merchants with great ideas and great business plans and a lot on the line here. They're already talking about throwing in the towel, and that's sad. And they have families they've raised, they've called Keene their home. I say give it a chance. I say delay the project, give us all a chance to breathe. We just got out of COVID not long ago. Our numbers aren't up. Nobody's numbers are up right now. I can guarantee you that. Nobody's. Mine, I've been in business for 30 years downtown. Nobody's numbers are up. We can rally together. We can make this work in a year. We don't have the information in front of us as to how this project will impact our storefronts. We don't know how the traffic will flow through town. We don't know to what extent it will cause us harm. I know at the last meeting, I stayed for 2 of the 4 hours of that meeting. I think I was one of the few. You guys had mentioned that you would have some sort of liaison for us to work with. I mean, give us the time. It's 1 year. Prices may go up, prices may go down. We don't know. It's just as speculative as a grant. Nobody knows. There's too many unknowns. So 1 year, give us a chance to survive. That's what I say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Jim? Short, right?
So, in effect, what the downtown merchants are asking for, in effect, is a grant from the taxpayers of Keene. Because we all know the costs are going to go up, and maybe we might get the grant. If I was applying for a grant, if I was a small business owner coming to the city, asking for money, because essentially that's what they're doing. You know what? They're talking about people going out of business, whatever. Why don't we get financial statements from them? Let's get 3 or 4 years of income statements, balance sheets, and personal, tax records. I mean, so I can come up here and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I could go out of business. Well, how do I know? Holy cow, you've got this much money? And you're asking for me to give you money as a taxpayer? I mean, it's fair enough to have an opinion, but it's like, if you're going to give away money, why not get some criteria? We have to apply for grants if we're getting from the government. If we're going to apply for grants to the city, shouldn't we apply and show that we actually have a real need, not just a worry? I mean, I know lots of business owners. Some are building houses, going on vacation. They're doing very well. And we have a small group. In fairness, there's a lot of anxiety. I appreciate that. But anxiety doesn't mean we're supposed to be increasing our taxes.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Roland Russell again, 77 High Street. We've been talking about delay of the plans. I want to speak to preserving the integrity of the plans themselves, regardless of when they happen. I'm joined 2 of the committees that are working on the 20-year planning session, and we have worked long and hard, the council, staff, and the citizens who attended the last 1.5 years, 2 years of meetings to come up with a plan that was forward-thinking, future-forward. We're not planning for us today. We're planning for our children and our grandchildren 50 years from now. So I want to make sure that regardless of what the decision of of this committee is, and the full council, when it's referred to that committee, that the integrity of those plans and the forward-thinking aspects of it, I speak as a member, vice chair of the pedestrian and Bicycle and Pedestrian Pathway Advisory Committee, that those future forward and safety considerations, raise crosswalks, things that make the streets narrower, that really help pedestrians and the safety, that those things are kept in the plans regardless of the delay and whatever associated costs. The worst thing I could envision would be delaying and not being able to fulfill the full plans. That's why I shared my Antioch story. We are going to be a shadow of what we anticipated we could be, and I don't want to see that happen for downtown 50 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Committee? I mean, the community? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Beth Doyle. Beth Doyle, 8 Main Street. I own Mo. I've been in business for 29 years. I came in after the last beautification project that Keene had, and it wasn't pretty. I got my space because a lot of businesses were put out during that project. So that concerns me. We talk about all these great new businesses coming, and we do have it. First 3 years in business, you don't make any money. And a lot of the businesses around here, we rely on traffic. We're not making appointments, maybe some are, if you have a beauty parlor or are a stylist. But for the most part, we need the traffic, and construction is going to influence the traffic. Yes, we've heard about this project for years, but we've heard so many different stories about when it's going to happen, all this different information. My business, and I think Ted's and a lot of businesses, we've already planned through your construction back in September and October, buying goods based on probably not having this because we were all over the map, whether you were getting a grant, it was going to be delayed. So now we're in the position where now it's coming, so you say, we're not really prepared. Will I weather? Yes, I'll weather the storm, but we survive collectively as a great group of businesses on downtown. If 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 fall, a lot more will fall. What makes Keene a place to come to is not because of my store or your Corner News. It's because of all of us. It's because we have great restaurants, we have shopping, we have great stylists. People come to Keene because it's beautiful, because of all of us. So losing 5 or 6 businesses, to me, isn't good enough. And then if we have a town that's filled with, no offense, but with real estate offices and non-retail and non-restaurants, is that really good for the taxpayer either? And I don't want to see Keene go the way of Claremont. And I know that's probably not going to happen, as we all say, these probabilities. But as someone who's been in Keene as long as I have, as a merchant, and saw what I saw right after the beautification of Keene, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that you'll put 20 or 25% out of business. So more time gives every merchant more time to prepare. And I bet there's a lot of people like myself that really didn't know this might be happening in 2025 till about 2 months ago, because we've heard so many different things. So I understand there's a risk for 1 more year, but isn't that risk worth having the same downtown we have now? 1 more year will help, especially those new businesses that are coming to town. The first year is horrific. It really is. So I really hope that you will think about giving these new businesses and the existing businesses a little more time. We all agree that we need this done, but we just want to be prepared for it. I don't think we're as prepared as we should be based on some of the miscommunication we've had over the few months. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Late this afternoon, the city clerk's office got an email from a city business owner, and normally they'd ask that things be delayed, or they chime in and we don't read the whole letter. Essentially, he says, don't delay. So that's another comment. Members of the committee?
You can go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know I voiced a couple of my concerns on both sides of delaying versus running last time, so I just want to speak to some of the new information that had come across today from the city manager, which I think it's great to hear that we have maybe an opportunity to go after full funding, or for the 3 years at least, from Raise, and that we might actually be able to get some collaboration from Senator Shaheen's office. I think that's, great to go after regardless, but great that it could cover the 3 years if we do decide to set the start date next year. But from an infrastructure and actual construction mindset of extending the period that we might be able to actually work with the construction companies, I think speaks a lot to me of instead of, a potentially rushed bid process and collaboration process between now and the start of construction season this year. I think it'd be great to go out in the fall and then have additional time over the winter and into the spring to actually collaborate with that company, with our plans, with the downtown businesses. So I think that was a great piece of information to get tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been just raring to-
What's that?
You've been raring to say something.
I think there's been good points made on either side, and I really wanted to know from the city manager how it would impact us as staff and their planning, and it felt like it was a win-win in that sense, that to extend it for both downtown businesses and staff. I did get pushback, which I figured I probably would. I heard from probably a dozen people that are concerned about taxes and the increase in cost. And we do have a new administration coming in, and that's a little scary, talking about tariffs. And if we don't know yet if is it going to where that's going to fall, but at the same time, it gives us an opportunity, as the city manager mentioned, to apply for this grant and be more prepared, which gives us a better opportunity to get the grant. But again, it's a risk because we don't know if we'll get the grant. And we don't know if prices most likely will increase. There's a lot of unknowns no matter which way we go. I know we're all concerned about the infrastructure, and we've been talking about that for years, and probably 10 years at least that I can think of that we've been talking about it. And, we're on borrowed time in the sense of like when that infrastructure could go. But I also feel like the downtown is the heart of the city, and so many people fall in love with Keene, and you could accuse me of just focusing on the feeling part of it, but I think it's significant. How many times, like when we've had meetings about various subjects, people have come forward with their stories. I mean, I can remember even way back with Jim Duffy and his wife. He was a former city councilor coming down Main Street and falling in love with Main Street, and people talking about it being the keyhole for the city. And some businesses that expressed concern at the last meeting, or at least their letters were read into the record, had talked about they're actually opening another business or a third business. So they're doing really well, and there's a momentum there. And and yes, it could be fear-based that they're worried about it, but I think it's legitimate. And a lot of people probably wouldn't like this, but I support the year, giving them the year.
Thank you. Colonel?
Excuse me. I may be a little bit off track a little bit. I'm a process type of person. And the things that I've been listening to over the last couple of months really had nothing to do with the project. It was just people trying to put I want a green toilet. No, I want a yellow toilet. No, I never heard of it. No one told me that I could go to Hebelton Hall to do this. No one told me I could call up to the city manager or whatever and ask for information about this. It just comes along as everybody's almost like saying is, we had no idea whatsoever this was coming along, and no one even told us about it. And I know the city manager has gone well out of her way to get this information out, much better than any other city manager that I served when I was on the city council. This was well presented. This was, everybody was given, who wanted to take the opportunity, was given the opportunity to get involved in this. And if this is the way we're going to do it for big projects going forward, we can only guarantee that the city is going to fail. We're here all to work together. And I just, I can't,
Thank you, sir. Guess it's my turn. Oh,
Yep.
you got another
I
one?
was going to say,
You want the voice from the sky?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I like the opportunity for the grant, the fact that we have a chance to do that. I like if we were to delay, I like the fact that we have an increased opportunity for the grant. I like the idea of if we were to bid in September and we aligned on a contractor sooner, there would be more time to communicate exact deployment plans for that particular contractor and how they think it would go to those downtown businesses, so that we could be really specific and potentially have some back and forth with that contractor on how we impact the downtown for different pieces. I think there's a risk around the cost, and that makes me very nervous, because as some of the folks that spoke tonight if you listen to everything in the news, then everything's going to skyrocket. I also don't trust the source on everything I hear in the news, especially currently, that those things are going to happen, right? And we don't know what's going to happen, and I think for all intents, it's a coin flip on what would happen on the costs. They could go up, they could go down. The opportunity for the RAISE grant helps me. I think one of the concerns I have is we actually had a downtown business owner organize a calling campaign against us getting the RAISE grant last time. I'm curious on the other side of that, and this might be for the city manager, if there's anything that the businesses can do to support us in getting that RAISE grant, if we're going to go through with this delay, if there's something that they could do, whether that's letter writing or anything like that. But it's kind of where I'm thinking right now. I'm curious if there's anything they can do to help.
Yeah, I would be happy to reach out to the downtown organization and downtown businesses to see if we could get some additional support letters written as part of this grant application.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
That's kind of where I'm at right now. That's it. That's kind of where I'm at right now. A lot to take in, and it's not a light decision to make.
We lost you.
No, I just said it's a lot to take in, and it's not a light decision to make. That's all.
I think to that point of having the effect with any elected official, every business owner is a voter somewhere, either in the city of Keene, or certainly voting in this state. A phone call to the senator's office or the congressman's office is heard, and it's evaluated, and it's important that if folks want to do that, that they do it. So I think we're down to the wire for a vote. Like my colleague here, I'm a process guy. There's no question the two of us come from the same kind of thought processes, and somewhere along the line, we've lost our process in this project. However, it's gone on for 7 years or more. It's got to go forward. And being here in January, making this decision is probably the wrong time to be making it. We should have made it a long time ago, or we should have had a package of what it was going to be. So it's put us in a pretty tough position here at this point in time. And I, in most cases, would say, no, let's move forward as we said we were going to do. But I'm thinking at this point, it's not the process I would have liked to have us do, and it won't be the process again in the future. The delay is going to hurt, but it'll be all right. We'll come out of it, because it's January, and in September, we'll be pumping out a bid. So I'm ready for somebody to make a motion.
I'll make it.
All right? All right, we usually start here, so.
Okay, you can do it.
Move to authorize the city manager to bid the downtown infrastructure project in the fall of 2025 with construction in 2026 and to pursue funding for all phases of the project through the federal RAISE grant.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? So it's going to be a roll call voice vote, starting over here.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Counselor Remy is a yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous. So we'll be all at council next week. Thank you very much for those who came, the information, and the discussion. The next item is from the police department. Captain, you got the floor. Good evening. My name is Captain Mike Kopsa, and I'm here.
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
Green light's better than a red light, I guess, right? My name's Captain Mike Kopsha. I'm here tonight to speak on two items. The first being Bulletproof Vest Grant. That's an annual federal grant that we seek, a 50-50 grant that helps offset some of the costs of replacing ballistic vests that the officers wear on duty, which only last 4 or 5 years or so before they need to be replaced. And then any new officers that we hire need to be outfitted with special tailored vests that are made to fit them specifically. So again, we budgeted for $3,950, which would allow us to, with the terms of the grant, expend a total of over $12,000 to, again, to offset those costs of outfitting officers with new vests that are replacing worn-out ones, and any new officers that we hopefully will hire to get their own new vests.
Thank you. Questions from the members of the committee? Members of the public? Seeing none. Motion, please.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and expend $6,259 from the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Program funds of the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Programs.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous. You have another one?
Thank you. Yes, I do. Similarly, this is another annual grant that Keene Police applies for. This is a state grant, and this funds our various initiatives, extra duty details for officers that are working as an addition to the regular shift, for special directed sort of patrols, whether it be for speed enforcement, drunk driving enforcement, seatbelt violations, distracted driving. And this grant, where it used to be separated out into those individual initiatives, is now one pot of money that is distributed amongst those different sorts of initiatives, the total being $10,200. And again, that's to fund all of these special duty projects to help keep the streets of Keene safe.
Thank you. Comments from the members of the committee? Members of the public? Seeing none?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and expend the grant from New Hampshire Highway Safety Agency to fund the Highway Street Grant Keene.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank
Thank
you,
you very
sir.
much.
Counselor Haas.
Good evening, Ed Haas. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm here on behalf of all of these commissions, and boards that we have. These are staffed by volunteers. They labor away and they provide great advice and information to City Council, to our standing committees, to city staff when needed. These folks don't get the acknowledgement or recognition that they deserve. They labor somewhat in the darkness. They occasionally put out information, but there's no regular support of an annual report of sorts for them. And I would like to call for such a report to be done, meaning give them a chance to say what their challenges were over the past year, what their goals might be, what obstacles they see, and how they can better do the job of advising all of us for which we depend upon them. If I get my prepositions in the right spaces. You look at how they meet, and they range. So I think we got rid of the Agricultural Commission a while. That's great. Why don't we get it off the website? So it's not there anymore. Then we have the College City Commission. There's a good one. We should resurrect that. We need to have great relations with the colleges, but they haven't met since 2021. We should get this going again. We should pay attention to these things, is what I'm saying. Some of the other meetings range from 5 up to the really active ones, like Bicycle Pedestrian Committee, and I'm happy to say, Energy Committee, Conservation, they meet regularly, Human Rights, and so on. There's some great committees here, but I don't think they get the notoriety that they deserve. And this would serve to give them that notoriety, that exposure, plus hold them a bit accountable. Don't just waste the city time, waste the record keeper's times, waste space on the city website. Let's get something going with them. And then, ideally, the same thing extends to the standing committees. What did you do this year? What are your challenges? What changes might you engage? And further into city staff as well. Let's have a continuous improvement process. So I don't know what the format of this would be. It could be as easily as we charge each commission to provide a one-page description of what they did and what they want to do. It can start that way. I'm not sure how that would be done. I imagine it has to be written into our rules of order, or we just do it by requesting it directly from those committees and commissions. So that's the reason I've submitted this, and I'll provide whatever support necessary. I can draft these letters and requests if necessary.
Don't volunteer.
No ideas unless your hand's in the air.
We're all set. He's going to take care of it. Yes, ma'am.
So I like the idea of requesting. I'm not sure that we can require for all of them. There are different statutes that they are created with, but it's pretty easy to request. So we could certainly request an annual report be provided, and we would provide that to the council, and would be happy to do that, unless, of course, Council Haas wants to do that. No, that's fine, too.
I will point out that I've already created such a thing for Bicycle Pedestrian and for the Conservation Committee, so we're maybe halfway there.
Thank you. Committee members, some discussion, thoughts on it? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do think it's a good idea to get some periodic reports from the committees, just to hear in from them. I think it makes sense, given what the city manager said, to maybe format that in some sort of request. I guess from just a process standpoint, what would that request look like? Would that be the city council making a motion, asking for a report from those committees whenever they deem necessary, or would that come from city staff in some fashion? I wonder how that would be envisioned.
Yeah, I mean, we could do it any way you'd like. I think it's a great idea to just do a motion that the city council requests an annual report from the boards and commissions, and leave it simple as that, and then we can pass that message along.
Any other members of the public? Counselor, you have been quiet, so,
Very unusual.
yes.
Thank you very much. Philip Jones, Keene City Council, Ward 5. First of all, I want to thank Councilor Haas for recognizing the City College Commission. I was on it from the beginning. I did become the chairman of that committee, and it disbanded after my first meeting. So, but you know what? In the years we were there, we did a lot of things that the public doesn't know about, and that would have been an opportunity. There was a program that was put together by the city clerk, and I believe was Mayor Kendall Lane in his earlier years, where we used to get reports from the committees, and they would do it at the standing committee level, whichever one best fit that committee. For instance, BIPAC would go to MSFI committee because that's a good fit. And we would hear what they were doing, and it was good to do it at the standing committee level, because where the public can also get involved and ask their questions and learn what's going on. So I thank Councilor Haas for bringing this forward. It's not something we haven't done before, so I think the process did work the last time, and it might be something we need to do without it even becoming a council process, just asking staff and the mayor to set it up. Thank you.
Just as a clarification, I did speak with the city clerk about this. It was a heavy lift to get them all to come to all of the committees, and so that's not what we're proposing here. We are proposing an annual report, and if there is a committee you would like to come before any of the standing committees, we can certainly reach back out to that committee and ask for them to come to a meeting. In addition to that, one of the other things that has come up is there may be a topic that you're making a decision on that you would like the input from, let's say, the Conservation Commission or the Energy Commission. So, committee, we'd be happy to also coordinate that as well.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My comments are not intended to be defensive about this. I think it's, but I just want to assure the public that there's a lot of information about our commissions on our city website. If anybody wants to see the agenda and the minutes of those meetings, they are on the city website for people to look at. I also want to just refresh our memories in the downtown project as a for instance, but at your last meeting and the Municipal Services Committee meeting, there were recommendations that came forward from the Heritage Commission as well as the Bike and Pedestrian Pathways Commission, and on another topic most recently in the last month from the Conservation Commission. So recommendations that need to reach the City Council are reaching the City Council if the committee feels that it needs the approval of the City Council to go forward on a certain project. So the process is not stalled. And in fact, the commissions are working bodies that are appreciated, are recognized, and are by and large fully staffed, or meaning volunteered by members of our community who want to serve on those commissions. So yes, we should update the website, and if there are reports that are coming, and the manager can do that in a less labor-intensive manner than has been done in the past, I think that's great. I think you might want to put an expected date on this. I think just in your motion, Is it something that you're expecting as a result of 2024, in which case I think there's going to be a frenzy of activity? Or do you want to see this at the conclusion, sometime during the 2025 year? Committees can determine, do they want to do it before the summer hits and they take a slight hiatus, or do they want to do it at the end of a calendar year, if that makes sense to them? Let a committee have that liberty to do it. And relative to the College Commission, just want to also reassure, there's a lot of dialogue that goes on between the city and the college. It's an important part of our city. I know the city manager meets with college staff. I meet with the college staff. And they will, in fact, be presenting their master plan to the Planning Council later this month, just to keep the dialogue going on certain activities that they may have going at the college, so that the city is aware of those and has a document that can record where the college sees itself going. That being said, it needs an agenda and something to target to. And I think that's been a little elusive with the college having to deal with some of its internal issues over the last couple of years. But we continue to have dialogue about housing, about neighborhoods, about, and we've got an officer working with the police force on neighborhood issues. We are engaged in workforce dialogue frequently with the Keene Area Manufacturing Consortium. I just want to make it clear, there's a lot of dialogue there, and if there is a purpose, it will be brought back to the City Council, because that charge, which was written in 2008, is a dated charge and needs to be refreshed if there is going to be an ongoing effort. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you have a proposed motion? Okay.
Could you give me
Yeah,
the specs
I
of what
do.
you're looking for?
The city council requests that boards and commissions provide an annual report once a year, or annual means once a year. But
Okay. Yeah.
Suspense date of July 1st.
Say that date again, I'm so sorry.
July 1st.
July 1st, okay. 2025, right?
Right.
So I would recommend that the committee would move to request that the city boards and commissions submit an annual report to the city council on or about July 1st, 2025.
Thank you. Is that your motion?
I move the motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Chime in, Mike, because otherwise I can't see your hand. Guess he's all set.
I'm good.
All right. So it's a roll call vote.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you, Counselor. It'll be forwarded to your desk. Class allocation and salary plan, HR.
Good evening. Assistant City Manager, HR Director Beth Fox. I am here with what I think is a pretty straightforward proposal to make some title adjustments to the existing class allocation listing that relate to the Public Works Department. There are two that are requested for consideration. The first is an adjustment to the existing title of Transportation/Stormwater Operations Manager, which is a bit of a handful of a title. The department has requested that we change that title to be reflected as Highway Operations Manager. I think they feel it succinctly describes what the position is charged with and is a little easier to roll off the tongue for the general public. And we had some pretty creative abbreviations that we tried to use for that position, and they just didn't work. The second adjustment is a proposed reclassification position. The department's taken a look at the job description for the infrastructure project manager and made some changes, and those changes warrant a regrading of the position to an S18 versus an S19. So those are the two changes. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Questions, members of the committee? Members of the public? Seeing none. Motion.
Move to recommend the adoption of ordinance O 2025-01.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Members of the committee? Seeing none.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much. You have another one, don't you? What's the next one?
I don't. I believe this is boards and commissions, and
Oh,
it's like it's.
okay.
Good evening, Terry Hood, Deputy City Clerk. Here to represent the ordinance that was submitted by the city clerk related to boards and commissions. Specifically, it's related to some changes in membership makeup for the Bicycle Pedestrian Path Committee and the Conservation Commission. Believe she referenced these as more of a housekeeping issue, and in terms of the Bike Path Committee, I think my understanding is there has been a desire to have a city council member serve as ex officio on this board for a couple of years now, and this is just putting that into place, and it sort of aligns with what the membership looks like right now with the member that is a city councilor will go from being a citizen member to a councilor ex officio on that board. And the second change is the Conservation Commission. We've had an ex officio member on the Conservation Commission for some time now, and the statute, because this is a land use board, we are dictated by statute as to who can serve, and that is not contemplated in that statute, so we are removing it for that reason. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Questions, members of the committee? Members of the public? All right. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. You talked about the statute, but could we have it in there if we wanted it? As far as like having a councilor member on it?
I think I would defer to the attorney for that.
We, a counselor can be on there as a member of the public, but we can't put in our code that one of the members has to be a city councilor, because we are subject, as usual, subject to what the RSA allows us to do, and it does not say, of all the ways that they specify the memberships can be, it doesn't say, and one shall be a city councilor or a member of the legislative body. So we can't require that.
So it would be to the mayor's discretion if he wants to put a council. Okay.
Yes, and I would add that there is a counselor serving on the board right now, and they will, to my knowledge, remain on the board, and they will just convert to a citizen member.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion?
Move the recommend the adoption of ordinance 02025-01. Oh, it's the wrong one. Move to recommend the adoption of ordinance 02025-02.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm looking at him here, and his voice is coming out down there. Unanimous. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucio, Public Works Director. So the request tonight is a request for a new appropriation, $50,000, to help us clean up some storm damage that occurred last July. Obviously, this has been cooking for a little while. To be honest, a lot of that time was figuring out whether these trees were actually city responsibility or not. The boundary line along the the back of the property on Sesame Street and where the city parcels are is not well monumented, not clearly defined. So it took us a little while to figure out if these were our trees or not, but we are at least convinced that they are, so we do need to clean them up. A number of trees, and I'm sure you all recall the big windstorm that came through West Keene in July, did a lot of damage in the Tanglewood neighborhood, Pecos Park area. This was tree damage that occurred during that storm. A number of trees are either leaning over private property, over sheds and that sort of thing, or are unstable in the vacant property, so there's a risk that it could fall. There are paths through that land for kids that are walking to school and whatnot, so it is a safety concern that we want to address. So the $50,000, we worked with the city's tree removal contractor to come up with an estimate. The biggest challenge with this issue is that the access is pretty tough. A lot of the work will have to be done with cranes lifting trees up over houses and backyards and whatnot. Some of the work will actually have to be done by, the tree removal folks climbing trees with gear and chainsaws and lowering branches down one at a time with ropes, that sort of thing. It's just going to be difficult work to do because it's so tight and access is so limited. So we came up with an estimate for the work based on a certain number of days of crane work and a certain number of days of crews climbing trees, and that's what's before you tonight.
Questions, members of the committee? Members of the public? Go ahead.
Sorry. A quick question. This is an estimate, so there's a possibility we could have some money left over. And there's so many people that love the trees in the city. Could that money that is left over potentially be put towards plantings of more trees in neighborhoods where the trees have been taken down?
So the estimate that we actually developed with the contractor was between 45 and 48,000. We asked for 50 in case there's a little, just basically have a little cushion. That said, subsequently had some conversations with the Parks and Rec director. They had trees on the other side of Maple Ave in the Dinsmore Woods property that they had to take down. They didn't have the budget at that time to have those trees hauled away. So if there's any leftover funds from this appropriation, our hope is to use whatever's left to have the trees that they just dropped and left in place, have them chipped and removed so they're not, unsightly in that neighborhood.
So they're not like in the woods or like where neighbors see
So
them?
if you're familiar with Dinsmore Woods, it's 2 tracts of land, one on each side of Maple Ave.
Oh,
It was
okay.
gifted to the city, and it's basically between like Maple Ave and the Tanglewood development on one side, and it's between Maple Ave and these other vacant parcels on the other side. But it's, within, I think that those strips of land are about 100 feet wide, so a lot of it is within view of Maple Ave.
Well, that sounds like a good use of any money that's left over. Thank you.
I do think that there's a project being contemplated and being worked on for replacing either these trees, this group of trees, or the many others that we've lost and we anticipate we might have to remove because of the disease. So
That's right.
It's
So-
not gone unnoticed that our trees are going away.
So
The tree city.
you may recall the transfer station recently had a funding request that included an allowance for tree planting beginning next year. So we are planning a pretty significant tree planting effort. It's not directly related to this event, but we are planning a pretty significant tree planting effort next year.
Yeah, I recall a discussion at this committee regarding adding more money to a tree program in the future, and just looking at any possibility where we could add to the coffers for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this request, the funding will come from the unallocated fund balance. It's not new tax dollars being added to the budget. It's a that net value here. It's a good use of our well-earned and managed funds. So, any further discussion? Whose turn is it?
Move to recommend the adoption of Resolution R-2025-01.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, he's now on. Yeah. And he's smiling, combed his hair. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason Martin, Fire Chief.
Greg Seymour, Deputy Fire Chief.
Okay, we have a presentation this evening from the fire department. Some senior membership of the staff want to give the rest of the council, I mean, I've had an opportunity, and Councilor Remy has had an opportunity to talk with these folks about this topic in the past, and most recently as sort of a reconstruction of the discussion. And so at this point, we'd like to share that with the rest of the FOP and all those other counselors who are listening in. And this is the first of several discussions. And I think you'll find some very interesting information from the folks. And if that generates a question, feel free to ask it, and they'll get you an answer, if not tonight, in the future. And if you ever have a question about what it takes to make sure that ambulance comes to your house, just ask them. Chief, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the introduction. I'm just going to give a little bit of background of how we got here today. Back in October, the city manager put a work group together to look at the current staffing model and how the increasing numbers of calls for service affect that. This group was made up of city staff members, the fire department administration, and the president of the firefighters union. The group, we collected and analyzed data, looking for trends that we could identify and ways that we could become more efficient. In December, Councilors Remy and Powers were also asked to join the group. They had past experience being on a former staffing committee that was started in 2021 and went through 2022. We identified that the fire department has reached its saturation capacity in regard to handling the increased call volume with the current staffing model. So this presentation tonight is meant to provide you with the information that we gathered by our group and to answer any questions you may have. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Deputy Seymour to start the presentation.
Thank you, Chief.
So you'll see the data. The best one probably for us is here.
Yeah.
And
Do you want me to turn one of these for you? Would that be?
I'm good. Are you guys good?
Okay.
And
Some of the
Mike
print.
has a copy of it in hard data, so.
Oh, excellent. And we do have paper copies here too to pass out. We'll do it, we can pass it out afterwards too, so. Any questions, let me know. And if I talk too fast or get too nervous, just tell me to slow down. Okay. Don't go too far ahead. You'll ruin the surprises. I'll give the city manager just a minute. Some of this information you'll see is just presented new. I've done some, for those who have seen it before, some other explanation slides. Councilor Remy, I hope I've answered all of your questions in here, but you have more, let me know, stop me, I'm happy to answer anything that I can. So we'll get right into it here. City of Keene Fire Department, little background information, let you know kind of where we are and who we are. The more information that I pull up and the more people I talk to, the more I realize people don't know a lot about us and what we do and what we are. So the Keene Fire Department, as it sits right now, is looked over by the Chief of Department,
who governs or looks over two different divisions. The Prevention Division, which is overseen by the Fire Marshal, and the Operations Division, which is overseen by myself. The Operations Division is split into 4 shifts, covered by 4 shift commanders, 8 lieutenants, and 32 firefighters. Like I said, they cover 4 shifts, each shift working one 24-hour period at a time. Daily operation staffing is 1 shift commander, 1 lieutenant and 2 firefighters, 3 personnel on Engine 1, 2 personnel on Ladder 2, 2 firefighters on Ambulance 1 out of downtown, and 2 firefighter AMTs or paramedics on Ambulance 2 out of Station 2. We do have daily administrative staffing too, but we can skip over that a little bit for now. A little more explanation into those as we go through here. So Station 1, 5 personnel. Engine 1 is our primary engine out of downtown, coupled with A1, which is our primary ambulance. They're the ones you hear running through here most days. And they are, like I said, Engine 1 has a company officer, a driver, and a firefighter, a company of 3. Ambulance has a company of 2. At any significant instance, they kind of marry together to create a company of 5 if they're all available at the same time. Engine 1, on busy days, busy ambulance days, Engine 1 company will drop down 2 guys who will cover another ambulance out of downtown. They can only do one at a time, obviously, so when they're on that ambulance, that engine doesn't have staff. So, out of Station 2, we house Ladder 2 and A2. Ladder 2 is staffed with a single officer and a driver, and A2 has 2 personnel as well, just like downtown. On fire incidents, we'll steal 1 member from A2, put them on Ladder 2 to have a company of 3. We do that every chance we can. Unfortunately, with the increasing number of calls, we don't always have the ability to pull that off. And I can kind of go into the explanation as to why in here in just a minute. Both of those stations are overseen by the shift commander. The shift commander rides around in the pickup. He is the kind of mobile command post for the city. He deals with daily operations, movement of those assets in and out, as well as emergency scene management and instant command, and on most incidents, if not all, coordination of mutual aid that comes into the city, whether it's additional fire trucks, ladder trucks, ambulances, or whatever we may need, and also the coordination of emergency callback of off-duty members. What we don't have, or what we also have, is unstaffed apparatus. You'll see these trucks moving around. Typically, they're staffed by callback personnel, not staff that we have on during the day. They've either been requested back, or we've taken personnel off of one of our staffed fire apparatus to cover one of these. And those are the Tower Ladder, Tanker 1, Engine 2, and Rescue 1. They're typically, Rescue 1's more of a specialized piece of apparatus that the engine downtown will drop and take for significant motor vehicle crashes, technical rescues, and stuff like that. And then we have 2 backup ambulances, A3, which is staffed by Engine 1, and A4, which is our second due backup out of downtown, and our spare, if you will. Responsibilities. Long list of responsibilities for the short list of members. City of Keene primarily provides paramedic emergency services for the City of Keene and our surrounding contract towns, which we'll go into here in just a minute. Structural fire protection, aircraft fire response, high-angle technical rescue, confined space technical rescue, trench collapse, structural collapse, hazardous materials response at the technician level, one of just a few teams in the state, surface water rescue, and both emergent and non-emergent event standbys. So that keeps us moving around quite a bit. Just to note, during our research, we kind of noted that the City of Keene Fire Department is the only department in New Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts that does all of those disciplines. There's none others that we're aware of. I think Portland, Maine is the closest that does the same things, or the same number of things that we do. Could be wrong, but it's the only one, we're the only ones that I've found. And when you ask kind of why that's important, why does that matter, the next slide maybe give us a little bit of context to that. This is a map showing the career fire departments in the state of New Hampshire. As you can see, the City of Keene sits all by itself in the southwest corner of the state with very little resources to help back us up. Typically, we are on our own for anything. If we were on the other side of the state, we may have some other departments we could utilize for additional engines, manpower, staffing, or specialties. And where we're at, we just don't have it. Our closest career support with specialties is the Brattleboro Fire Department in Vermont, which is 32 minutes away. Other than that, we're looking at Claremont and Concord, which are both about an hour. So. Over the years, you can see this graph will take us from 2009. This will show the steady increase in our call volume since then. In 2009 is the last time we really added any apparatus. 2009 and 10, that's when the shift commander got added to the car. We added one personnel to take their spot, but we haven't added any ambulances, fire trucks, or ladder trucks on the road at any time. So our staffing was really built for that call volume. We've tried to thin out and become far more efficient with our staffing. But you can see a steady increase in call volume, a little awkward dip there in 2020 with COVID, but we took off right again. Our projected numbers for 2024 were 6,366. And those are emergency responses. There's no fluff in there. Those are all emergency calls. And yes, those are our projected numbers. I think we were off by like 8. So projections came in pretty tight to where we thought they were going to be. A little bit better explained in the next slide, which puts our unit responses next to our total call volume. You can see our actual total volume of emergency calls for 2024 was 6,373. It required 10,880 unit responses. What that means is some incidents may require more personnel than a single apparatus can give. Ladder 2, for example, only has 2 personnel on it, so that's short-staffed. We have to send an ambulance with it, more personnel, we count that as 2 unit responses. Building fires may require 8 unit responses or 10 unit responses. But to manage those 6,000 plus incidents required those 10,000 movements of apparatus and people around the city. Call volume, this is a bit of a busy slide. I apologize in advance. This slide, the purpose of this slide is to explain where we are most of the time. The green bars on the graph represent the city of Keene, which is where a gross number of our incidents, as we expect, are. We do also, like I said, respond to out-of-town contract towns for ambulance. We do respond mutual aid to other communities to help out with our specialties, to help out with fire response and other things like that. But you can see the city of Keene has been where our biggest increase has been. And actually our out-of-town calls as a percentage have gone down from 10% to 6.61%. So we are staying in the city more, though those calls out of town do obviously have an impact on us. And yeah, that blue just represents the percentage of out-of-town calls compared to our total volume. Another busy slide here, sorry. The bars just represent our total call volume split between fire-related incidents and emergency medical-related incidents. The bars on top, the lines that run across, represent our staffing. The bars don't correlate with our staffing levels being appropriate. They're just showing an overall number and its increase compared to our call volumes increase. One thing that's not reflected in this slide is how we have changed our manpower usage. Years ago, we used to promote our staff jobs, which are the fire marshal's office, fire prevention, and fire alarm. We used to promote from within side, so we used them a lot for response. They used to be our additional engine, our third engine out of downtown if we needed it, or they would take an ambulance if we needed, because they were also paramedics doing the same job. As we've had to hire outside, we're no longer able to dual role those people. Also, dual rolling them also stole them a lot from their primary jobs, which caused us some other problems. So we're no longer able to use those personnel. So our actual availability of personnel to respond has gone down. Overlapping incidents. This is where I talked about the addition of apparatus and where it kind of hurts us. 2,700 of the 6,366 calls were overlapping, meaning at one time, if a call goes out, we're 43% chance another one's going to come out right behind it, which never fails, it always does. And we have to split our resources. If we had the 10 on-duty personnel to handle any one incident at any time, most of the time we would be just fine. However, when we have to split those personnel into 2 groups, we start to thin out our availability and thin out our ability to handle anything major especially. So as we thin it out with small calls, and then the big call comes, the big car crash or the building fire, we don't have the personnel left or the depth left to call from. And then we utilize callback for that, which, just like our volunteer communities around us, takes time to get resources in to help cover any emergencies. And anyone who's called for an ambulance or fire truck knows that every minute that we're not there can be a big change. This slide, I apologize in advance, is very busy. I'm sure it is on your screens. This just is a kind of complete breakdown of our different incidents. The large graph representing emergency medical calls and motor vehicle crashes. The other ones are kind of spread out, but those are all of our fire-related calls, whether they're working fires, kitchen fires, or other deals. I won't paw through this pretty heavily. What this was meant to kind of explain is we had done some changes in where we track some calls, and the additions that we have are very minimal. And those have been, any additions that this year have been pulled out from the final numbers, and you won't see them represented anywhere. Where do our big bulk of calls come from? Where does the increase, where are we seeing it? We're feeling it mostly in EMS, as you can see, as we've kind of shown, and the bulk of that is in nursing home responses. Are people in the nursing home sicker? Yes. But historically, those calls were covered for us from Deluzio Ambulance. They used to do most, if not all, of our nursing home runs in the city. And as they dissolved, those fell back under us. Reasons behind that were predated me, so I'm not sure the inner workings are why they used to do that, but I have my suspicions. But as you can see, we've taken a stark increase. Since 2018, when we responded to nursing homes about 167 times a year, we're now up to just under 1,000. Many times during the day, we can have one or two or more ambulances at a single nursing home for separate incidents at the same time. This grant, we have them split up by our individual locations. As I redid this, I kind of washed the names off of this one, but I can tell you who each one of them is. But it's not a single nursing home that's the problem. Not the problem, but that's not a single nursing home that's causing the increase. It's spread across all of them. And as we've taken more responsibility for them, we're just responding to them more. Though people are, post-COVID, people all do seem sicker. We're responding to a much higher acuity patient than we have in the past, requiring far more treatment and far more manpower before we get to the hospital. Revenue, while not all bad news, we do, as we see more emergency medical calls, we do see an increase in revenue. This revenue is just broken down by each place that we respond to and how much revenue from EMS billing we do get from each location. This is not tax dollars, this is revenue received from the ambulance billing. And I'll let you read through those on your packets. I won't bounce through each number. Unless you need me to. Do you want me to go through them individually? Or we could do them.
I just didn't hear a word that she.
Oh, okay.
It was billing.
Oh, billing, yes.
Something else, sorry.
I might make up a couple words as I do this.
No, I just didn't hear it, I'm sorry.
This is our total collective revenue through everything. As you can see, as we've increased from 2015, we were receiving, this is actual received revenue, about $860,000. Our total billing revenue, we're right around 1.651 for FY24. So with that volume, it does come with an increase in revenue, which we're very proud of because we have worked very hard for it. Out of town, contract town responses. So this is reflected by the small colors on that graph before. This is 6% of our total call volume. You can just see here broken down by community. As of last year, Chesterfield, Nelson, Sullivan, Surrey, Roxbury, and Westmoreland. Westmoreland in 24 stopped. We stopped responding there overall when they changed their contract to county. So you'll see that the Westmoreland numbers look a little funky than that last year, a couple of times here. Out-of-town responses to non-contract towns. This is for any reason. Building fires, emergency medical calls, mutual aid for specialties. It's just a rough layout of those responses. As primarily, as their population would dictate, Swansea is by far where we go the most out of town. Contract town revenue has stayed pretty close to where it is. You can see again, Westmoreland falls off in that final year. So we did see a depreciation in our total revenue from contract towns. I think this total revenue in FY '24 accounted for right around 11% of our total revenue. In non-contract revenue, we respond to a lot of places for other, like I said, specialties. We do provide RSI service, which is a specialty in emergency medicine. That I won't go too deep into today, but it's something that only the city of Keene in this area is able to provide. So we do, when we can, try to help out our neighboring communities. This is a bit of a new slide to those who have seen this before. We've changed a little bit how the working hours. I've mentioned how we haven't added a significant amount of staff, but we have added a significant amount of work in the background. These are some of our top workers in the working hours that we're asking them to work for us to cover those positions, the vacancies, positions, additional calls and callback. This is their actual working hours. 2,100 and change is the minimum working hours for their 42-hour work week. You can see we're asking some in FY '23 to work just north of 3,250 for the top earners, but most of them are above 3,000. And as we poke through FY '24 and FY '25, significant increase overall in the workload for all, the working hours. For our top earner there on the left, you can see he's up just shy of 4,000. That's a projection. Let me go back up a little bit. I'll give you actual numbers. So just shy of 3,500 on this one, which puts, if you were to do the math, I think puts him doing an extra 30 weeks worth of work. So trying to work almost 2 full-time jobs in the same building, which we know adds stress, adds burnout, and adds to can kind of burn them out much faster than we would anticipate. While they're there, we do wish that firemen slept a lot. Unfortunately, they don't. You can see here calls per member. Our top 15 in 2022, our top guy had right around 968 calls that he responded to as an individual that he was on for. As I kind of go through the next couple of years here, you'll see that those have kept it creeping up. 774, but you can see the body of them is very high. And as you average those across the state comparative to other communities, we're on the highest for all. FY '24, we finally broke 1,000 on a single member, which is a heavy tax on the workday for them. But overall, like I said, as an average, we're still the highest, I believe the highest in the state. And that is, as far as right now, that's kind of the bulk of the information that I have for you. I'm super happy to answer or go back or answer any questions that I can.
Did you want to add? Yeah, sure. Please.
So when we last looked at this a couple of years ago, there was a staffing committee, and we spent quite a bit of time looking at the trends in the fire department and analyzing where we were going, what we were going for, what types of calls, who was helping us, and who are we helping, to really get a good understanding of what was occurring at the department. And at that time, the council supported the addition of 4 firefighters. Now, 4 firefighters is 1 per shift, and those 4 firefighters, unfortunately, it takes us so long to get up to staff, full staff. Really, we've had people retire, and then we've had new people join the department, and we might be getting to a point where we might be, hopefully, at full staff soon. But it is very clear that regardless of that, our call volume is still growing. And New Hampshire is one of the oldest states, and as you saw, a lot of the growth is at our skilled nursing facilities or in our nursing homes. And you know, the change with Deluzio and losing their service to the community has impacted us dramatically. And so it was important that we come back to the table and talk about what's happening and what we might be able to do. And so tonight is the first presentation of data, and we intend to come back at your next FOP because we will be looking for support of the City Council to apply for a SAFER grant. This is a grant through FEMA. I think I have that right, that provides assistance to communities who are looking to add staffing. The grant provides 75% in the first year, 75% of the cost in the second year, and 35% in the third year, and then it's fully on your budget after that. So it would be of great assistance if we were able to get those funds. And we're going to be talking with you about what we think we need to apply for in this next round of funding. And so tonight we were hoping for any questions that you might be looking for us to answer. And if you don't have them tonight, just send us an email so that we can make sure that we have all of your questions, because the grant will be due, and I'm looking to the chief for this.
I don't have the exact date, but it's in February, near the end of February.
Yeah, so it's in February, and so, you know, we'd love to have a commitment from the council to support us applying for that grant at your second FOP meeting, so it can go to council before it's time to apply for the grant. And so that's really where we are this evening.
Yes, sir.
I got a concern with 4 people for the projected 25-hour, fiscal year 25-hour work, because I don't care if you're Superman, sooner or later, you're gonna break down. And sometimes you may break down at the most critical time, and then you can cause fellow co-workers to suffer injuries too. But the people working 70, 80 hours a week, at those hours, it doesn't look like they take much vacation time or any time whatsoever to regenerate. And this is a highly stressful job. They have to have time to regenerate, or sooner or later, the stress breaks them and then you lose them. And so we just really can't have, that is just too high risk to them, too high risk to their coworkers, too high risk to the people they work to. And it's really an insurance liability too. There's too many risks there. I don't see any positive.
And if I can add to that, in addition to risk, it is contributing to burnout in general. It's also contributing to lack of desire to return for a call, right? So when we're calling for more people to come back, if you've worked a lot of hours already, you're less inclined to come back. And so it does create a whole host of issues for us, which is why it's important that we have the right staffing model for the call volumes that we are seeing.
I think you're right. And probably the good thing for us is that that's all the youngsters that are taking it. But they're gonna burn out at some point in time, and they're gonna buy a house and they're gonna have families. But I hope this is an anomaly that, once it sugars off in terms of staff and maybe how we deal with nursing homes, because that's where the volume is, and you gotta go. But, we're very fortunate that they are youngsters. I mean, they're really youngsters. But it's clearly an issue for us, even if it wasn't having to not make them, they choose to do this, but they have to have them work that many hours. The call volume is just astronomical in my opinion. And it was very nice when we heard we were gonna have a brand-new nursing home, but boy, that came with a big, and then blame everything else on COVID, maybe that's what it is, but since then, just the call volume has gone up all over the place. So.
We'll add some more bad news for you. So, in terms of the nursing homes, with the impact of the private nursing homes are really impacting us right now. But also, if you remember, with the changing dynamics with Deluzio closing its doors and then the county creating its service, the county has been backing us up in the city and for no charge. But the county's model will also be changing in the future. So, the more we can cover ourselves, I think in the long run, the better off we'll be in terms of costs, but also just in terms of what the council expects from the department in terms of level of service.
Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for this information, and I definitely get concerned about the well-being of these very dedicated firefighters and EMTs. I wanted to ask, on a lot of the graphs, it said that the 2024 year was projected. How close to being accurate is that 2024 number?
Within 10, like total.
Okay, and then nursing home-wise, when we had Deluzio's, I guess what I'm asking is, I know having to deal with a nursing home on a weekly basis, they're using a service called Smart Ride, and they've actually taken people to the emergency room. So that kind of replaced Deluzio's, didn't it?
Start, and then I'm going to give it to them because they actually know way more than this than I do. But not exactly. So Smart Ride is for the people who have an appointment and it's not an emergency. The fire department responds when it's a 911 call, or it's the acuity of the patient that they're looking to transfer requires a higher level of service.
Yes.
The background also used to be that Deluzio had contracts with these nursing homes, so the nursing home would call them directly if there was an emergency. So we got very few 911 calls, and now that there's nobody or no contract signed, they just call 911 whenever they need an ambulance. Also, they're using the emergency room more as a doctor's office too, which when as you all know, when someone calls 911, we're going to go no matter what, but it could be for somebody that's going to get labs. And Smart Ride can't take every patient because Smart Ride is like a wheelchair van. So if somebody is bedridden, then that's when we'll get a 911 call to take them to a possible appointment, or it could be a severe medical emergency. We're getting called for all of those. So.
And I have one other thing. On the out of town, like the small towns, they are volunteer-based probably, right? So do we ever call on them? I know they call on us, but do we ever call on them to help us with a fire?
We certainly do. It just, unfortunately, with the numbers, it's not 100% reciprocal, but we definitely rely on them, on all the outlying towns to back us up when we have a fire, because the reality is we don't have enough to if we have a second alarm, we can't fill all our trucks, so we're relying on those outside towns to come in and supplement us. It's just the numbers aren't. We pay them a little more than we get back from them.
And one last thing, indirectly related, I guess. So I live in an area where there's a lot of rentals, and there's a lot of ambulance action. And a couple of neighbors asked me to ask this. A lot of times when they're coming, and maybe it's, I don't know, I'm going to guess that there might be ODs, but when the ambulance shows up, there's often a ladder truck. And so I've been asked, like, why is the city using my tax dollars and sending a ladder truck with an ambulance? So I was asked to ask, so.
That's a great question, and I'm going to ask the deputy to comment on that, just because he has he's a little more eloquent on how to, but that's a very valid question, and we can explain that.
So there's a few reasons. Number one, as we talked about before, all of our members have to do all disciplines, whether it's technical rescue, hazardous materials, fire response, or emergency medicine. Some days, depending upon where our paramedics are staffed, whether they're on the ladder truck or in the ambulance, that patient may need a higher level of care. So we send more people to help shorten the duration of the call, to provide more care, to help carry out from multiple stories and help carry equipment in and out, and be there in case the incident is as predicted or worse than predicted. If we don't need that staff, they can also break away to respond to another emergency, or they're already there if needed. So we get a lot of times where we're always, I'm trying to think of how to word this well. Time is never on our side. Every minute we don't have the appropriate resources on a call, it gets worse. Whether that's a fire doubling in size every 60 seconds, or a cardiac arrest patient, their instance of survival goes down 10% for every minute that we're not doing CPR. So after 10 minutes, their survival rates have gone below 5%, and we're at a loss. So by having the correct resources there dispatched to the call, we're able to provide better care in the moment and keep that incident as small as possible.
Would they be able to show up in, like there's our fire trucks that are more like pickups or Suburbans? So the question was, why are they sending a ladder truck and not like a regular truck?
So as I would talk about too, is 42% of our incidents are overlapping. So they have to respond from anywhere, ready to respond to anything. Now that ladder truck is not only a ladder truck, it's a toolbox, contains tons of equipment for tons of things. They may have to respond from that medical call to a house fire or another medical call or anything at any minute. So rather than driving back from where they are to the fire station to change out apparatus and then drive somewhere different, which lengthens time, they go with what they have and take everything with them.
And there was one other question. They asked, why do they keep the trucks running? Because of the gas that they consume. I'm just the messenger.
Yeah, there's a bunch of good reasons. So the trucks do a couple things for us. They do operate all of our radios. The lights have to keep running. To run all the electronics in the trucks have to stay idling. There's also, with new emissions in the vehicles, they have to stay at a high idle to help burn off a lot of that soot to keep so they're not producing enough carbon and keeping all that smoke down. So to keep our emissions working, which is a constant battle for us, they stay running and stay idling. But also, it's extremely embarrassing if a fire truck fails to start. So if we're parking on the side of the road and that truck doesn't start, we can't get to the next call. So keeping them running and keeping them ready to move is in all of our benefit.
Michael? Questions, comments? Members of the public? Oh, there he is.
No questions, no comments.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Jared Goodell, 39 Central Square. I just want to start by noting that the Keene Fire Department is currently the most expensive department in the city. As of the 23-24 budget, the department budget has ballooned in recent years, now standing at $9 million, which is nearly 20% of the city's overall budget. Notably, between 2019 and 2024, the department's calls increased by 11%, but its budget in the same period increased by 18%. Now, based on my research and in line with what we've heard tonight, EMS makes up the lion's share of calls that the Keene Fire Department responds to. And I suspect that Keene is not unlike other cities and that a very high percentage of EMS calls is focused on the unhoused, substance abuse, mental health crisis, and nursing home and elder care facilities. Now, as a taxpayer, and Councilor Chadbourne just brought this up, it's always confused me to see a very expensive piece of equipment and very highly trained professionals who are on board respond to a low acuity type of call. And I don't say that with the intention of minimizing what any community member goes through at any moment. However, I think that there are more efficient ways that involve better resources to get those members of the community proper help at the time and to get them moving forward. Now, I think Councilor Powers will probably have heard this before. Law enforcement often says that 20% of the population represent about 80% of a department's calls. And your smile tells me that you probably understand that. Now, and I wonder, quite frankly, if the same is true for EMS calls. And I think that Councilor Chadbourne might have sort of observed that herself. How many repeat calls are for citizens, the same citizens, experiencing substance abuse or mental health issues? I fear that the fire department, in much the same way that in some ways the police department has become a catch-all for really the most vulnerable in our population. Now, other jurisdictions have recently successfully developed and implemented what they call alternative response units or crisis response units. These units are much more focused on those high-frequency calls that don't require the million-dollar fire equipment to respond. They may operate out of a standard vehicle, as Councilor Chadbourne brought up, and carry things like Narcan or over-the-counter medicine, which could be administered. And these units could also be staffed by not firefighters, but social workers who can help connect these citizens with resources instead of just another ride to the ER. As an alternative response unit could also help with low acuity nursing home transport calls in some instances, I think, like a transport van instead of the more expensive ambulance. Now, the Keene Police Department has recently moved in the same direction with its staff social worker. That position allows expensive police department resources to be directed at more resource-appropriate calls while simultaneously providing a more impactful response to the citizen in need. So in sum, I'm just asking for the city council and the fire department and city staff to look and research different ways to solve this staffing issue. To simply just keep hiring more firefighters and EMTs just doesn't really seem to be working. The population isn't growing in Keene, but we're getting more calls. And I think that there's probably a mental health aspect that goes along with that. I just think that throwing money at the symptom just isn't seeming to work, and I wonder how long we're going to do that before we're in the same boat that we were with the police department, where we said, let's take a different approach to help the citizens that are most in need. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public? Colonel, you got it again?
I don't know if you guys were here at the time, but there was a running joke at my house, but it wasn't really a joke. Every time we saw an ambulance go down my street, it was stopping 3 houses down from my house. There was times, it was almost like you treated somebody, you leave, and then you have to come back again and put some more. Or if I look out the other window, right across the house, right across, same place, same building, ambulance and a fire truck. It was repeated over and over again. One group has moved out, but the other group hasn't moved out. So it's constant repeat calls like that, high drug use and other issues that constantly call you to go over and over. This will be probably not politically correct, but the one that lived right down from my house, there would be no way in hell that 4 firemen could pick her up. And you have to adjust to those. You just can't send 2 people out anymore.
So to answer, I think both statements or both questions a little bit is, yes, there are many places in the city that we do repeat calls to. Whether that's mental health, and there is as we all know, nationally, there's a significant mental health crisis. The opioid crisis, while I think getting much better and getting a lot of traction there, is still an issue. And I think we'll always have, no matter what city you go to, neighborhoods that have higher demand, depending upon the socioeconomics or whatever element it may be. So 100% to both. And we have explored many different ways to utilize our staff to try to reduce things and kind of figure it out. And I think right now what we have available for staff, and if I didn't explain it better before, I apologize too, is we haven't added much, if any, other than one firefighter per shift in many, many years. So we haven't really increased what we have the ability to move around and act on, and that's been 3,000-ish calls ago. So by moving our people around, we've only thinned out and become less efficient or less able to manage the emergencies, while trying to respond to more of them. But yeah, I think there's a lot of creative ways to do a lot of things, but they do take people, to solve those problems. Fire trucks are wonderful, and they do an incredible amount of work for us, but they're no good without people on them to respond to those emergencies.
You want to just quick overview of the bariatric needs? And it's not a minimum amount of calls when you aggregate what goes on, but most people don't know that you're equipped to do that kind of thing. So if you could.
So several years ago, the state, through a program, put out a cache of equipment. So it was state funded, which was wonderful because it's very expensive. Equipment to handle bariatric patients. These are patients in excess weight that we can't handle on our normal equipment. And they're a different size stretcher, ramps, and other equipment to allow us to move patients without lifting them. Unfortunately, these calls are also very manpower intensive. We kind of fluctuate with how many we have. At any one time, we had just under a dozen places in the city that required the use of special equipment. We're at a kind of a little bit of a low point for us right now, which is good, but yeah, so we do respond very frequently with that equipment. But like I said, it is very manpower intensive. That equipment saves us many injuries or potential injuries, but still extricating patients from homes is very difficult.
Manager, and then, did you, okay?
Oh, thank you. Could you go back to the slide real quick? This one? So, I've been talking to the fire department for 7 years now, and we have talked about all sorts of models for providing service. And I was stuck on an EMS model instead of firefighter model for a while. And we had the conversation about why can't we just add some paramedics and another ambulance? That's the majority of our calls. And one of the things that really changed my mind about that was the fact that we don't have enough people for the large fires. And I think at the next FOP, it would be helpful just to talk about what it takes to handle a structural fire. And that's not so much of a problem if you are in Concord or in some of those other communities that have full-time fire departments available to come to your call. It becomes more of a problem when you're isolated like we are in Keene, and we rely on volunteers. And we rely on them, and we're grateful for them. But to be honest, those numbers are dwindling, and it's not as reliable as it once was. So for me, it wasn't just about the EMS calls, but having enough people to handle a fire when we have a fire. And so I think it would be helpful to talk a little bit about that at the next FOP meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm having a senior moment. It's like, what was it I was going to ask? Oh, I know what I was going to say. To Jared Goodell's point, we've had discussions about adding more social workers to deal with mental health issues. So that is an ongoing discussion and consideration, and I just wanted to mention that.
Just to
He's got
piggyback.
rank over you, so.
Just to piggyback with that comment, I can't speak to specifics because I'm not involved, but I know Cheshire Medical has started a program that they have paramedics on duty that work in the emergency room and then go out in the field. And I think, and again, I don't want to put out facts because I'm not part of it, but they're gonna do like an outreach, like a community paramedicine program. And so people are looking at it and maybe more on a regional, when I say regional, I mean like the hospital taking in all the outside towns. It's good, it's being looked at, but very much in the infancy.
Hi, everyone. Rob Scrocky, Professional Firefighters of Keene. Before I comment, I'd just like to thank the city manager for putting this work group together and including us along the way. It's been very helpful. It's been great to work with everyone, and they've heard us out. You know, we as labor don't just come into this thinking about our working conditions, even though I think the conclusions of that has been obvious throughout the presentation, that we're in some pretty tough times, and our members are really at the brink of failure, basically, and that's something we never want to reach. We talked about how we measure that and things like that, and discussions we can have at another time. But Councilor Chadbourne, just to clarify part of your question about the ladder truck and the ambulance showing up together, a piece that wasn't touched on in our data was how we decide what we're going to send out, and that's triggered by the 911 system. So the 911 system codes a call when someone calls 911, and they run it through whatever matrix they have, and then they tell our dispatch what they found and what section of their matrix the call falls into, and that triggers our response matrix to kick in. So it's not every call that shows up and we go, oh, that sounds like we should send a fire truck and an ambulance. There is a little bit of a predetermined equation as to what we send based on the severity of the call, and then sometimes it's just in our professional opinions, that sounds like something a little bit more serious than what they said, so we choose to send the fire truck also and more additional resources. So I just think that's an important point to clarify.
Go ahead.
The other thing I was thinking about, in some of these situations, like, they could be dangerous for you. You know, when you have a drug overdose, but there could be other unpredictable behaviors occurring within that household. So, I mean, do you know, like, when to call, like, police backup, or, I mean, how do you guys handle that?
Go ahead, boss.
So we do have areas or places that are flagged that the police are dispatched with us. The police can also hear us. They have their own level of suspicion that they go with us as well. But our members do a great job most of the time at recognizing that it's a situation that requires the police, so we request them. Having said that, we do have members that are punched, that are injured from patients, and whether that's a medical patient having a medical emergency that causes that, or violent patients or violent situations. I've mentioned it before, a different area, that we do go into the darkest corners of the city in the darkest times of the day. So while our members take great risk at building fires, they do so in medical calls as well. And they do it proudly, but yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. We've got a plan for the next time around, and our goal is to be moving kind of fast here, because we got to get this out of council in a couple of weeks. So, anybody, whether you're on this committee or not on a committee, if you got questions, give them a call, or maybe send them an email. That's the most, you know, and you know, I hear it often from some of the folks that have been around a long time. I can't just walk into the fire station like I used to. Yep, which that's true, because everybody, for the most part, everybody's out. But there is some support staff there during the day, and they'll certainly help you out in any way they can. But really, if you want to get some good information fairly quickly, an email to one of them, and you'll get some response back with information. And the other thing, probably a good time to say this, goes back to the thing that Mr., who brought it up, one of our counselors, but what people are doing. The city's website has a lot of good information on statistics, you know, how many calls they're going on, police calls. Public Works has a matrix they use when they're developing their budget that says how many roads and how many things they deal with. And when folks start reading that, they really begin to understand what it takes to run this place. This is a big business, and it's very unfortunate it's costing more and more money every day, because everything costs money. You know, sort of like going to the grocery store. You're never going to get out of there next week for less than you did this week. It's That's our business. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Did you do a motion on this?
No?
It says move to recommend the
Aye.
acceptance.